everybody, my name is Kyle39, welcome back to another video. Today in this one it's going to be another card analysis video, and in this one it's going to be, is Mulcharmy Meowls actually good? Yes, we're completing our trifecta of Mulcharmy talks. 2 weeks ago we talked about Fuwalos, last week we talked about Purulia, and this week we'll be talking about the newest Mulcharmy in Yu-Gi-Oh! Mulcharmy Meowls. So in this video we'll be talking about the effect of Meowls, the pros and cons when it comes to Meowls, and at the end of the video I'll be giving you my final thoughts on the cards. Without further ado, let's get straight into the video. But before we get into the video, I want to quickly cover the price tag when it comes to Meowls, just because in the last two Mulcharmy ones I covered their price, so I want to cover this price as well. So this is pre-sale prices, by the way, because technically this isn't out just yet. It releases later this week, but they're in circulation right now because of the pre-release that happened last weekend. So on TCG Player here, it's about $70. It's like $68.97, rounding up, pretty much $70, making it the second most expensive Mulcharmy, if I'm not mistaken. I think Purulia and is the cheapest one, and then, oh my bad, I misspelled Charmy there. Charmy, sorry. Fuwalos is the most expensive, and then Purulia is really cheap right now. Actually, Fuwalos has kind of been dropping hella. It's actually at 73, still more expensive than the what's his name, Meowls, and then Purulia is really cheap right now. It's like 40 bucks right now, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 40 bucks. But on pre-sale prices like Gamer Choices, they were selling it at $50 a copy, but it's sold out at $50, so maybe it'll be a little bit more expensive. So around 50 to 70, maybe we'll call it the middle of $60 per copy for this card. So that is the price for Meowls. Now let's get into the video, shall we? Alrighty, now on to the effect of Meowls. So Meowls is a level 4 Earth Beast monster with 100 attack and 600 defense, and the effect reads as follows. If you control no cards, quick effect, you can discard this card, apply these effects this turn. Each time your opponent special summons a monster from the graveyard and or banishment, immediately draw one card. And then once per turn during the end phase, if the number of cards in your hand is more than the number of cards your opponent controls, plus 6, you must randomly shuffle cards from your hand into the deck, so the number in your hand equals to the number your opponent controls, plus 6. And you can only activate one other Mulcharmy monster effect the turn you activate this effect. So that is the effect of Meowls. Now let's get into the pros. Alrighty, now on to the pros when it comes to Mulcharmy Meowls. So number 1, it draws you a card when your opponent summons from the graveyard or banishment. Now, that's really good, especially in the format that we're currently in, where Fiendsmith is pretty much everywhere, and they're going to give you a couple draws, because they summon a couple times from the graveyard. Something like Malice also specials from the banishment a lot of the time, so that's really good against something like Malice as well. Even against something like Rizal, it's actually pretty decent as well, because the node is going to get you a draw. Even though there are better Mulcharmies when it comes to the Rizal matchup, this can still hit it somewhat because node does special from the graveyard, but a lot of the Rizal stuff is also playing the Fiendsmith stuff as well, so it has a couple things you can hit. So in the format that we're currently in, Meowls is actually pretty decent because there's a lot of graveyard summoning back and banishment summoning back as well in this format. Number 2, it forces your opponent to play weird. So your opponent, since when you activate Meowls, they'll probably not want to give you that many draws. It's going to force your opponent to play weird, and it's not going to set them up on the most optimal end board, making it where at least you can crack back on their end board, just because, again, since they don't want to give you 20 million draws, they're probably going to make they can't set up their full end field, so it's making it where it's a little less impactful of an end field, making it where you can at least play through that end field as well, which is really good for you. And number 3 is it's not bad as a 6th draw. Now this is only specifically for this Mulcharmy. I feel like Purulia and Fuwalos are really bad when you draw it as your 6th card. Like, obviously the Mulcharmies are good going second, but you kind of don't want to draw it as your 6th card when you draw it for turn, because really it's not going to be that impactful when it comes to Purulia and Fuwalos. But when it comes to Meowls, I think that is maybe different, because being a 6th draw is still not that bad against like the Fiendsmith stuff, right? They're usually ending on the Lacrima in graveyard, making it where if you activate the Meowls on your turn, maybe you can get a draw, or at least forces your opponent to activate the Lacrima straight away, and it's all of a sudden you can, it plays into more. If like you activate it during the main phase, and if you have a talent in hand, you go Meowls, they can chain the Lacrima to make sure you don't get a draw, but they play straight into something like triple tactic talents, which is really good. But also against something like a Malice matchup, right? Even as the 6th draw, it's still really good, because even if they activate the trap to summon back their White Binder, a lot of the time they want a White Binder, banish one of their guys to come back so they can get the other traps set up on their turn. That plays straight into Meowls, you're at least guaranteed somewhat of a draw when you verse something like a Mouse in that way as well. So something like that's like a 6 draw, and even something like a Ryzel, because the Ryzel is setting up on the Eclipse Twins that's coming out of Supreme Darkness as well. Being able to activate this start off and then force out the Ryzel pop itself, if the Twins brings back the detonator, you're going to get a draw. So even though it's still not the best draw, you don't want to see this as your 6th draw, it's at least better than the other 2 Mulcharmies if you draw this as your 6th card, because you can still somewhat get value out of it just because your opponent, a lot of the decks right now, is summoning from the graveyard during your opponent's turn as well. So it's actually not that bad of a 6th draw as well. So that is the pros when it comes to Meowls. Now let's get into the cons. Alrighty, now on to the cons when it comes to Mulcharmy Meowls. So number 1, it is absolutely terrible going first. Now again, this is more of a Mulcharmy problem more than it is a Meowls problem. That's more of just an archetypal Mulcharmy problem, but doesn't take the fact away that it's still terrible going first, because you have to control no cards for you to activate this card. And if you're going first, your opponent's never summoning from the graveyard if you're going first, because they have nothing set up in the graveyard or banishment anyway. So it's completely terrible going first. It's never going to get you value ever. Again, more of a Mulcharmy problem, but still a very much big problem when it comes to Meowls as well. But number 2, it's also very format dependent. Now, it's getting a lot of hype right now just because the current format we're currently in does play into this card quite a lot, but there are going to be formats where there's not going to be that many special summons from the grave or banishment, so making it where it's very format dependent. Again, this is more of a Mulcharmy problem. The only Mulcharmy that doesn't have a format dependent problem is Fuwalos. I think Fuwalos can pretty much be played in every format, because you can pretty much guarantee everyone summoning from the deck or extra deck at least a couple times in whatever format you're playing. But when it comes to Meowls, it depends on the format, right? Like, obviously, this format is really, really good, but there's going to be certain formats where not that many special summons happen from the graveyard. So it makes it where Meowls isn't as good as in every format, and that's why I think something Purulia has this problem as well, where it's format dependent. It makes it where you can't really main deck these cards because you don't know if it's going to get the value or not. When it compared to Fuwalos, you can at least somewhat guarantee it's going to get you that value. So I think this makes it more, it's a side deck card. Now, in this format, again, it's still good, but still a somewhat problem when it comes, and that you do have to think about when you think about buying this card for the future as well. So that is the cons of Meowls. Now let's get into my thoughts on the card. So, is Mulcharmy Meowls actually good? Well, if the format is graveyard and banish reliant, yes. Otherwise, not really. So obviously in this format, it's probably going to be a good card, probably going to be in a lot of side decks for this format. But again, this ties into more of the, it's a format dependent card. If it's not the format for that, then obviously this isn't going to be the card that's going to be played at all. But the thing with this one is it's just coming out, so obviously the price tag is pretty high on this right now. Maybe if you're thinking about buying the card and you don't have to go to any big tournaments in the near future, maybe you wait for it to drop down a little bit more in price, because I don't think it's going to stick to that $70 to $60 price range. I think it'll drop down more to like a $50, $40 card at that. So maybe you wait until it drops a little bit lower in price, but there is a chance it does just spike up in price as well, because a lot of the Mulcharmies have done that in the past, where they've kind of been dropping and then they just shoot back up in price all of a sudden. So it's kind of a risk to take there. But in my opinion, I do think it is a good card. It is a format dependent card, but I do believe it is a good card, and especially for this format that we're currently in, I think it will be being played in side decks for sure. But that is it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe for more content on the channel, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.